Great.
So this is the one of the ones you think you ran.
Yeah. What I wanted the company to be about was American sport bikes, American engineering, and in a very technically advanced way.
It's a good day for a Chris Knight song. Here's why. When the rain runs down your window and you can't hold back your and you're so afraid you know I'm always right. You cry lonely and I come to anyhow, the rain song.
That's awesome. That's great. So you were saying you actually started playing music when you were 14? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's when I started playing rock and roll, getting into that whole scene. And so I played through high school, and then I started college, and by then I was pretty into music, so I dropped out in like 3 weeks out of college and played music. And then my side job, I wound up quitting for a day job working in I'd already in high school been working a little bit in motorcycle shops. So I started working more in motorcycle shops and working as a flat rate mechanic and all that kind of stuff. Then I got fried on the music scene, and I really liked the guys in the motorcycle world. There were some really good people. A guy who used to run them. Well, I worked for all the different brands. There was a guy who had a Kawasaki shop named Walter Finnegan. We called him Zero. And he was just
What'd you call him?
Zero. That was his nickname. I can't remember. It was a name that was given for him because at one point in time somebody said you're a zero because you'll never be anything, and he wound up owning this motorcycle shop. At one point in his life, he had run from the cops and been caught. Anyhow, went into the background, but he was a super nice, moral guy that just was incredibly dedicated to making customers happy. There were no shortcuts. There was no BS. He was purely straight, honest, and it was cool. And I compared that to these bar owners who would screw us out of money and the promoters were on. I'm like, I like this world. And then I started then I started racing, and then I started going to night school for engineering. Because after you worked in a bunch of I worked at every brand from, Ducati to Harley to Yamaha, Kawasaki, all the Japanese brands. And you're like, man, I could engineer better than these guys if I knew what I was doing. Like everybody does who's a mechanic. You're like, who designed this thing? So, and I probably made a few of those mistakes as an engineer, but hopefully less than most. That was my motivation.
So when you were racing, when did you start racing, and what were you racing?
Well, I started racing dirt bikes and
in Pittsburgh,
motocross bikes, out of Pittsburgh. Then I got hurt really badly, got my leg broken in 7 places and all this stuff onto it. And just as I had turned, like amateur, what do you call novice level pro, and on my Kawasaki F81M. And while I was healing, there was a cat who had a Kawasaki 500. I was a big Kawasaki 500 triple road racer. That he had decided was hopeless, and he wanted me to convert it into a 350 single because you could race those against 250s at that era. This is early 70s, right?
Yeah.
Great. So you could race a 350 single against 250 twins, and Yamaha dominated in 250 twins. So this was a thing if you're a Kawasaki fan. So I took the motor out of my F81M, put a 350 cylinder on it, put it in the chassis, worked on it, got it done. He went to one race and decided he didn't want to race anymore, so I bought it from him. And then I'm like, I think I got my leg in the foot peg. I know I can't carry a motocross fight. I'm going to go to a road race and try it out. So I went to a race and I got third. I went,
Really?
it was just an amateur
Yeah,
race.
that's good
but it's
though.
like,
Yeah, you get a taste of the podium and get
like whatever it was. I never thought if it was a podium at an amateur race. They give a little plastic trophy about as big as this.
right.
But, it was that kind of, it was, man, this is cool. And so I switched there. And when my leg finally healed, I went back to training on motocross bikes. I usually I offer training, but I never raced again. Because I didn't have money to do, it was all I could do to get to a few road races.
Yeah.
The amount of money I had. So I had to focus on that. So that's where that went. Then I started riding, Yamahas, and my whole career went on from there. But yeah, that's how I started road racing.
With the road racing, what was your, when did you feel like you were starting to get into some competitive racing, and what kind of bikes were you on?
Well, I rode the Kawasaki for a little while, and then they were having a lot of trouble. Not many people had much success with them. They were really stretched, pushing those engines. It was hard. So I went to one year, there was a guy that I fixed, a wonderful guy that helped me out a little bit in my racing career. There was a guy who had a Yamaha 250. He owned a coal mine. A guy named Joe Tassone owned a coal mine and a trucking company, and he had a 250 road race. Well, actually, he had a 350, the air-cooled 350 Yamaha, and he wanted me to convert it into a 250 so he could race it his own. So I did that for him, and I fixed some other bike his, and I just did it for free because he was just kind of a nice guy, and that's the way I was. So I fixed it for him and all that stuff. So he calls me up and he goes, I'm not going to go to Daytona. You want to take my bike to Daytona and race you? Well, sure. So I took that air-cooled Yamaha to Daytona and
That's awesome.
did okay with it there. And something happened. They miscounted a lap, so I was qualified with finishing like 17th or something. But I know I was finishing the top, and for sure, because they had one lap where they're like, you must have run off the track or something. They used to count the laps. It was a big deal. I'm like, I did never run off the track. Well, that one's missing, so you must be back here. So then I went to Road Atlanta, and it was an old air-cooled, and all the water cools were out by then. And I went to Road Atlanta, and I had to start way in the back because it was rained out, so you couldn't qualify race. So they started you based on whatever, prior season's points or something. So the starting grid ran all the way around the corner and up the hill at Road Atlanta because they couldn't disqualify anybody. So there was probably 180 guys in the race. So that's how many used to show up. I mean, they'd show up. At Daytona, you had 240 guys show up, or 300. They run 48 bike heat races, and you had to finish in the top 20 to make the 80 for the grid for the novice race. That's how crazy racing is.
Yeah.
Because everyone could buy air-cooled Yamaha, and water-cooled Yamaha, they were cheap.
And go race.
Everyone could. But anyhow, so I wound up getting fourth in the race. First air-cooled for sure. Third place was this far in front of me, but I was so back, and you're passing people. I had no idea where I was. Like, gosh. But that's when I'm like, man, that wasn't bad, So then I started on a mission to get something water cooled, which led me behind a water cooled. Was set my career back several years. I was working a lot, and I could buy it on time. And what a horrible bike and this. So unusual collectors, those were just shit. So that's the reality. Can't tell you all the things that went wrong with it. So I floundered around with that, and I go to club races, and I knew I could run pretty well. And then I got a water cooled Yamaha in that same year. My buddy Joe Tassone bought a Ducati 900, 77,
Okay.
a 900 SS, and said, "You want to race this?"
He bought it and said, "Do you want to race it?"
Yes. He said, "I'm buying this for you to race because you're fat."
Wow.
And,
That's awesome.
So I raced that Superbike, and I rode the Yamaha in water-cooled Yamaha in 250 expert class, and then at a lot of club races. And by then, I was finishing the top 10 on basically a stock 900 SS street bike, finishing 7th in the shit in AMA Superbike. I'm like,
Awesome.
I'm getting there,
You're getting there.
just down on power, everywhere. So then the next year, I got a TC 750.
Yep.
Used one, bought that for $4,000. Can you imagine that? I mean, that was a dead flat competitive motorcycle. $4,000. Now, $4,000 in today's dollars is more, but you'd have to extrapolate out that year to have a competitive superbike.
Yeah.
And that was the highest level. And back then, there were a lot of people who came to Daytona. It was a big prize money.
What was the engine in that?
The TC750 was an inline four-cylinder two-stroke.
Two-stroke.
Reed valve. So, and the superbike was a number 2 class. So I did Ducati for superbike and then TC750 for Formula 1.
And then
So,
what was the horsepower on a bike?
they were, I think the TZ750s did not, the stock ones did not have that much horsepower, but that's back then. It was still a lot. So they were probably 140, 145 horsepower, something like that.
Yeah.
I think Kenny's was probably 180,
Yeah.
but he deserved it. But the standard was, so mine was a little down on power, but that's, I think, most where they were. And what did they weigh? I can't remember what they weigh now, 340 pounds or something. I don't know.
That's pretty good.
But they were quite quick. I mean, they would spin the tire up on the banking and slide on the banking. It was a handful.
How was the power band?
It was pretty intense, but it was still a little bit like a motocross bike because it was reed valve. So initially, when you rode one, when you come off of 250s and superbikes, probably a Ducati 900 SS back then probably had 90 horsepower.
Right.
I mean, I'm not joking. That could win an AMA superbike. So that's where the power levels were back then. So I had second year for the Ducati, so I had a 250 and a superbike for 77. And 78, I got rid of the 250 and I bought the TZ750. And I remember I went to Daytona Joe had Reno Leone build me a motor because it didn't stock the year before. He had me building a motor for Daytona in 78. Anyhow, in the superbike race, I was running 5th. And on a white flag lap, the upper carburetor fell off the frickin' rear cylinder. The clamp had fallen. I worked so hard, dude.
Yeah.
That broke my heart. I was like, and that's when and that bike was slow and it was popping up. They had horrible transmissions, those old air-cooled Ducatis. They were terrible. And it was popping out of gear over and over again on the banking. So I've been battling with Baldwin. I think Baldwin went up finishing 4th. I've been battling with him and I kept popping out of gear and I was slower than his Guzzi. And I'd lose the toe in the banking. And Mike was really good. But I had 5th sewed up. I'd been battling with, MD, David MD, Yoshi Suzuki.
Oh, yeah.
But I had shaken him off. He was smoking a little bit. Something was going on with the motor. He had a lot of power on me. I think Wes won that race that year.
Yeah.
Out of the Yoshi Suzuki. Anyhow, 5th to nothing. He rode a 0. So then in the Formula One race, I qualified, I think 17th. First rookie, highest qualifying rookie. But the grid was crazy. There were at least 120 people, I think, because I've seen the entry list for I think there were 120 people.
That's a lot of people.
For 80 slots. And then there were guys like Joey Dunlop.
Yeah.
And on the grid next to me was either Greg Hansford or Corky Ballington, one of the 350, 250 Kawasaki works riders.
Mm-hmm.
And Bort Van Doelman from Sweden. I mean, it was all the equivalent of MotoGP riders from the 500 came over and ran the race because it was big money and they were experienced with that kind of power. So in that race, I was battling with Gary Scott for 9th for most of the race. And I actually had a better pit stop than him and I was ahead of him. So I was in pretty good shape. And one of the ignition pickups quit. I lost 2 cylinders.
Oh.
So I DNF. Yeah. From 9th to nothing. So that was my hero to 0 first year at Daytona. But I knew I could run.
Yeah. That's great.
It's funny on years, even when you're getting old like I am, you can almost remember what gearing you're running.
Right.
It's so weird how the impact of racing is burned into you. Kenny Roberts was really good at Daytona that year. So he was on a factory Yamaha, and there was another guy who had won the race, I think in 76, Venezuelan 350 world champion named Johnny Tucano, was really good. They were on matching bright yellow Yamahas that were fast. Mm-hmm. Kenny lapped it.
Wow.
Kenny lapped through second. Kenny lapped everyone in the race. And many people 2, 3, 4 times because the guys in the back of the grid. He was stunning.
That's amazing.
And I remember he passed me on the front straightaway, and I've been battling with Scott. And I knew who we had passed and who was around me. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And Kenny came by me on the front straightaway for the faster bike. I'm like, what the hell? Give a little time when you're out the banking. I look at that tower in the middle, and his number's number one. I'm like, I got lapped. What the? Talk about demoralizing. But I also remember he passed me on the front straightaway, and we swept around. The track used to be different. It used to be longer in the infield, faster in the infield than it is now. But you sweep around this big corner in the front, and I'm like, so I follow him into that corner when he passed me on the front straightaway, right at the start-finish line. I follow him in. I'm going to learn from him in the infield. I'm following him. I'm going to go into turn 2, the big sweeping horseshoe. I'm going to go break when he does that. I can't. And I watch him. He turns the front end, and you can see the front end skidding into the corner. He's riding it like a fucking miler on pavement. I'm like, wow, I can't do this. So I kept racing and doing it. But then, right before I broke, and that was 2/3 of the way through the race or something, I can't remember when, Chicago passed me. Same place on the bank. I repassed him in the end. Wow. And then he passed me on the bank and was going. But I knew I was riding.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any money. I just didn't have the money to keep up with the bikes, to keep up with the maintenance, to get to the tracks, to do this stuff. I'm working flat rate. I'm going to night school.
Yeah.
I'm just fried. So I'd go to a race and something would break because I'm not doing the maintenance. I should because I didn't have the money, Everybody else is coming home and tearing their stuff down and they're doing it fresh. And I'm sticking it in the corner of their garage and trying to catch up on the time I had off of work,
Get back to school. What were you doing for school at that point?
I was at the University of Pittsburgh, high school for engineering.
For engineering. Yeah.
And I took some day classes the last couple of years because they didn't have them at night. You know what I mean? They didn't have all the classes you need.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty crazy.
And when you're doing engineering classes at that point, I mean, is there any engine focus? Is there any wheels? Is there, I mean, is it,
No.
is it all just
This is University of Pittsburgh.
strictly math engineering, or is there any like vehicle engineering or?
No vehicle engineering. I still remember I tried to, for my senior project, I suggested, I proposed this thing around a motorcycle oriented thing. And they went, no, your senior project's going to be at a steel mill. So it was measuring the BTUs of some damn furnace or something.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's where everybody goes and graduates from here. Go work in the steel mills or Alcoa aluminum or, There's still a lot of industry in Pittsburgh, although it was dying. And so when I graduated, I had a bunch of jobs and I took the lowest paying job that I got, job offer. And I had to fly myself there and
Where was that
an
at?
interview, and that was at.
Oh.
And I did not like. That's not my kind of bike at all. But I wanted to work on motorcycles, and I wanted to engineer them.
Why?
And you could work for Honda, you'd get jobs for them, but you'd be a test engineer and you'd never design.
Yeah.
That was done in Japan.
You do a part of a part.
You'd just be an evaluation guy. That wouldn't do anything. And I wanted to engineer. And so I went to just because I just nowhere else to go. And I thought, they really do need my help. I said, I've been working out. This stuff was pretty bad. It just was not very good quality. It needed a lot of re-engineering. And guys who work on, there's a nostalgia thing, and everybody loves a company that's been around forever. And guys will talk about, good old. If you're an engineer, the heads are held on by like 27 screws. The valve cover, give me a freaking break. What a moron. Whoever designed that. I'm going to do a little video. I just did something the other day. Little segue here, but I swear I'm going to do a video about this because I love, one less part is one step better to a better design.
Yeah.
I'm such a believer in that intensely, And so things like that are awful. So I was just getting our bikes ready after the winter. So I have XR100s, and then I got a Kawasaki 140. So these are kids' play bikes.
Yep.
So get them started in the winter. You got to restart them. You got to spray some start fluid into the carburetor. Right?
Yeah.
Well, on a Honda, you pop off one cover held in with 3 bayonet things. You go. Then you take a rubber thing and you lift it up and you lift off this metal cover. Then there's this springy metal thing. and you push on it, lift it up, pull out the filter, go, psh, bing, 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 you know, close. In 3 seconds, you're done. Kawasaki, go over, go. Side covers are held on by 3 8mm screws, each side cover. Start taking them off, it's like, oh, but the battery is dead. I have to take the seat off. Well, the seat is held on with 2 bolts with nuts. They didn't even build in the thing. You know, get that off. Then the air cleaner cover's held on with 3 more bolts. I'm going to do a video of like, this is shit engineering. This is shit engineering. I love Kawasaki. I'm sure they make great bikes. You know, there's a lot of anti-anything. But whatever the team is that built this Honda versus the team that built this Kawasaki, they won.
Yeah.
Because I don't want another Kawasaki. I'm so pissed I bought it. So I still don't have it running.
Yeah.
Because I got distracted. Sorry.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So you wanted to go work on motorcycles.
Yeah.
And you came to work in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And what kind of what was it like at first? What year was that? And what was it like at first? What did they put you into? And what were you,
Well,
what were you given to work on?
I started July 1st of 1979 because I wanted some time off after I graduated in January, the middle of the year, because my credits were all moving. And I wanted to get some stuff fixed and sold before I moved away. I had a Datsun Roadster I had to get running and sold, and a few other things, and bikes. Anyhow, so I went up there, and one of the coolest things was because I had never experienced this before, because all the jobs I had were weird-ass jobs. So I started there, and like 3 days after working 3 days, I had a vacation day for July 4th. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I've never had a vacation day.
Especially July 4th. That's usually Fix Our Bike Day.
Yeah. So anyhow, this one. So I got started there as a junior test engineer down in the basement. My first job was working on the oil consumption problem of which in 1979 was unbelievable. So I had a GT 750 two-stroke, right? Water Buffalo. Mm-hmm. I loved that as a street ride because it was just very mellow.
Yeah.
And it's also fun to kick people's asses when they on windy roads when they didn't expect it. But I had that, I work pedal this stuff. I was a good mechanic. And I was getting 1,200 miles to a quart of oil with the oil injection system. These were getting 300, 250.
Wow.
400. They had taken the valve seals off. They had no valve seals. Some bean counter at AMF had decided, oh, I don't need those freaking valve seals. I mean, the oil just sits down low. You can't believe how bad these things are. Oh, that was awful.
Yeah.
And we were working on bandages, and I was just shocked. But anyhow, they were doing that. And then after being there for a while, I became led to a test engineer. And that's when I started doing chassis testing.
Yeah, okay.
And that's when I started doing the stuff with adding instrumentation and LVDTs, because they had 14-channel telemetry, and then a bunch. They had a motorhome that had this receiver for the telemetry and strip chart recorders that would spit out that brown paper with the zigzags on it or whatever from the that were sent the signals from the bike in a big box on the back of the bike with it. So I could measure the steering head angle, and then I could put on force transducers and measure the force in the handlebars, and then I could measure the twist of the swing arm by putting LVDTs on the back, and twist of the forks by putting LVDTs on the front. All of a sudden, it's like, ooh, I can learn all this shit.
Yeah.
I can figure out what matters and what makes things handle. And then I would ride them myself. They had union riders who were all good guys, and they rode a lot. They put lots of miles on. But when you start to the extreme, dangerous testing, and I'd come up with my own ideas, they'd be like, how do you do that? And I was fine because I just came off racing, and I was sad that I couldn't race anymore. I couldn't afford to race.
Yeah.
I didn't have any time off, even though I had an income finally. I had no vacation days. I couldn't race at all. And
So you were done racing at that point too?
I couldn't.
Yeah.
No time off. I couldn't. And
so you were putting the bike test bikes to the pace and giving them unusual tests to see how everything reacted.
yeah, because they had some, their basic bikes were very slow, and so the high speed handling wasn't such a big deal. But they were getting faster, and they had done and they were doing and they were all rubber mounted. And they had a lot of handling issues. The rubbers was a great idea to isolate the motor. But they were handling bad. And of course, there was a group of people who went, well, that's all the rubber mounts. We got to get rid of them. They're never going to work. That's what's wrong. And so trying to figure out what was really wrong. And relating to it, a couple guys in the analytical department were pretty good, but relating that to reality, that's one of the big things is trying to compare lab computer-driven analytic predictions with reality. And if they don't match, the computer's wrong. I mean, that's reality is what you're shooting for. So it's trying to figure out why. Okay, we need to do this with computers. Why are you getting the wrong answer? Figuring that out, rewriting it. Which is usually they're missing a critical, it's a bunch of simultaneous equations. And if you're missing a few of them, you're going to get goofy data when the information that's pertinent to the problem at hand is in those equations you don't have in your model.
Yeah.
So I was trying to find those. And so we wound up making the bikes handle, really well for what they were. I mean, they were heavy. They became a great handling motorcycle at that era for. And
Is that something you enjoyed doing, was taking something that needed some work on handling and
yeah,
making it better?
Yeah, very much so. I was into, you want them to be safe and appealing to people. We were looking for a company and they want to sell more motorcycles. And at that time they were doing very badly, selling bikes less and less every year. And the Japanese were taking over. And part of the issue was, the magazines wouldn't even run road tests in that era. It's hard to believe, where it went to, and now it's that fade a little bit. But when motorcycle magazines were a big thing, they just didn't want to run tests because they didn't want to embarrass one, because they were pretty awful.
Yeah.
In the hands of people who wanted to ride on or have experience riding those. It's like, well, this thing wobbles and it freaking does all this shit, it leaks oil, and wanted to fix them, because I want to survive.
Yeah.
Just not even for my own job, just because it's a company that's making it, has workers, it has people, and I watch layoffs happen, and you're like, this sucks, man. We got to stop this. You got to put people to work, not lose jobs. They were losing jobs because the company was making products that weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And, meanwhile, there was a mixture. Then there was a group who wanted to completely redesign everything and turn into a Japanese company. The Nova was a big project they were working on with Porsche, a V4 and a V6 and all these things that we're going to do. And then took over and they did the buyout, and he had his act together. He's the businessman I probably admire most of anyone in the world, just because of what he did. It wasn't on the most brilliant. He was very brilliant, but he took a bankrupt, wrecked company and made it into a booming success. And he did it by the scruff of everybody's neck. He was awesome. Guy did all the right stuff.
Yeah.
For that company. But like I said, when I was there, it was like, oh man, what are we going to do? So I was doing everything I could, and I kept getting promotions. So then I became a project engineer, and then so I was in charge of and then the next job I had, then I was in a project doing some advanced concept vehicles, and then they wanted me to be either the chief engineer, or the head of the program, or chief engineer on the project. So I quit. I don't want to do either of those. I'm bored. I'm done. I got to go build sport bikes. It's just I needed the cruisers. Yeah, I remember telling right before I left, he did an exit interview, which was interesting because he was the CEO. But I had 5 promotions in 3.5 years.
So you were moving up pretty quick.
Yeah. And he said, you should need to stay. And he said, if you're bored in engineering, I'll move you to marketing. I'm like, marketing? I want to go there. He goes, you know more about customers than you think. I'm like, no, I'm going to go build race bikes. So that's what happened. And 10 years later, when he bought the company, he remembered that. He went, what do you think? I said, I don't think there's any future in this cruiser business. I want to build sports bikes. Because I had no use for them.
Yeah.
It's just not my kind of bike. I don't like cruisers. It's just not. My bikes, for me, a bike needs to be lean, light, athletic, part of your body. And that doesn't mean that other people can't have other opinions of me. It's not like I'm going to hate anybody who likes cruisers or anything.
Yeah.
Just people are different. And for me, that's what I want. And I knew there were a lot of other people who owned sport bikes. And if you were an American who loved sport bikes, you had to buy an import.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah.
So what was the drive and the passion to quit your job and go do something on your own? That's a big leap. Pure
insanity.
What was that?
Pure insanity. I don't know. I don't what I was thinking. But anyhow, I was like, I got to do a halo bike. And I had this, when I'd been working for, I couldn't race the first couple of years. Then I ran once, maybe an 80 or 81, 80 on a Yamaha again. And then it was just going down. I went, I can't ride a Ducati and a Yamaha and work for this company. I feel like a traitor.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold them. My buddy Joe let me take the money from it. But I actually didn't sell them then. I stopped racing them. I sold the Yamaha and I kept the Ducati a little longer. And so I left and to start my own, business. And I wanted to build a race bike as a halo bike. And then I wasn't sure what I was going to do after that. I was going to talk to Yamaha or Honda and see if I could buy motors or something, do a Bimoda thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but just the idea was I got to do something else. And
You got to have a good motor.
and the RW unfortunately got banned. I mean, the class got eliminated the year I announced it.
But you started on the RW.
Well, I was already racing it, so I bought the Bartman thing when I was still working for, and I was trying to race it, and it just was unusable. It was horrible. And I'm like, I can re-engineer this. So I'm working a full time. I'm coming home and working all night on this thing. And
The 750
that was a 752 strokes rotary valve.
4-cylinder.
Yes, which was much faster than the Yamahas.
That's square.
Yeah. So it's like, if I can turn this into a functioning vehicle and sell it, that'll be an American approved American race bike. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out what to do for street bikes.
What was the
underneath,
horsepower?
like that. That made a lot of horsepower. I don't remember the numbers right now, but 165 or more.
That's amazing.
Which back then, when like I said, it was a lot more than the Yamahas. But it was very violent power bend because it was a rotary valve, not a reed valve. Very hard to ride, but just a bullet fence. And I tried to get to buy it after I got it running. It was independent. And it's like, don't you guys buy this thing, and you guys can go racing and start. You need a halo bike, build this thing. Yeah, we went down to Talladega to test it. And Goodyear back then had super high profile tires. And I didn't even thought this through. And Doug Bronick had called. He was going to ride the bike because I quit riding. And he said, I'll bring Michelin's. I got sponsorship with them. I'll bring Michelin's tires and the Michelin Tex. Well, Talladega's going to be super high speed. You need fresh tires built for high speed. And they were crazy low profile. So they were like 20% smaller in diameter. I mean, they were just super low versus super tall. I wish I had a good ear. It was really super high. I had side balls and shit. I didn't have enough gearing. So we blew the motors up on the banking because they were on the red line in sixth gear.
Yeah.
Coming out of turn before you even hit the straightaway.
Wow.
And I just didn't have any smaller sprockets for the back to put on.
Yeah.
Anyhow. And they AMA, so AMA really got rid of that class. So then I'm like, I don't want to go back and work. So I still want to build American sport bikes up. Why don't they take a shot at taking that stupid motor and put it in a sport bike chassis? And they had leftover motors, which were the best, most highest performing motor at that time that they couldn't sell. And they had a bunch left over in the warehouse, like 60 of them or something. And so I made a deal to, I built a prototype around one of them, about first R1000. And then I went on a cruise with dealer award cruise and got agreed to sell me those engines
Nice.
on credit.
It's good to have a stable engine supply. Yeah.
So that was the second time, that was the first time really helped me out.
Nice. And then you were building the 1000 RR?
Yeah, so then we built the R1000.
Yep.
And dealers were interested in, the ones who were into performance.
Yep.
So I
Good
was
looking
telling
bike.
them, guys like the Ulysses,
Full fairing. You
Full
tuck in
fairing.
there, real nice.
Yeah, super aero was the
Yeah.
idea because it didn't have any horsepower. So I'm going to look a little crazy, but it was like, I got to have aero. See where I can go. And I know I can make a great handling chassis, from what I learned on the OW, how good I got it. And which they were. So they really were. They were rubber mounted and still handled really well. And because it wasn't about the rubber mounts.
Were you doing anything to the engines?
I think, no, I think we were starting. So the guys, we raced them, did well, got in the covers of magazines, started building the brand name with that.
Yeah.
We built a brand name briefly with the RW because they ran an article saying, isn't it sad that this is going away or something,
Right.
We got a second cover of a magazine.
Yeah.
So people got interested in this whole idea that, there was some engineer interested in building an American sport bikes. But they were kind of expensive then. They were hard to get, not many dealers.
Yeah. Well, the RW is interesting though, because that's a lot of engine in a lightweight package
Yeah, it was
Right.
very quick.
and two-stroke. Just generally, what do you think about two-strokes?
Two strokes are wonderful. I mean, they're cheap to run, they're cheap to work on. Manufacturing cost is low. Power per cc is fantastic. I mean, that's why they ran 450 four-strokes against 250 two-strokes and 250s against 125s.
Mhm.
They got rid of the two-strokes. The power per cc is great. People don't like the smoke or something. I think they sound cool. I mean,
I
everybody
think they
likes
sound
the big
great.
car.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I hear a four-cylinder, if you heard a TZ750 or an RW or an RG500 fire up, I go, oh, yeah, that's a meme. They just go, wah, wah.
You think they'd ever bring back a really solid racing class of two-strokes?
Will they ever? I don't know. It's got linked to the government, the emissions, and
Yeah.
most of the manufacturers don't ever want to get sideways with governments or emissions. They can stop it. They are worse, although maybe they got better, but they have a bad name.
Yeah. Is that RW? I mean, it's a small package putting out a lot of power.
Yeah, it was very,
Really
really intense to ride.
Yeah.
Very, very fast.
So you got the R1000, then the 1200. I guess if you move forward, at some point there was a desire to have your own liquid cooled engine, right? What was the drive for that, and what was it like to get something like that approved and some of the entry
We're
work?
going to talk about the whole route to getting Buell finally a water-cooled engine was just crazy. I mean, I laid out the original layout and the concept of the VR1000 that Harley raced way back in the day, back in 88, 87. I started it. It was supposed to be done in 88, but the motor didn't get done. And that was a split fuel in the frame, split radiator concept back in 87.
Mm-hmm.
Trying the idea of, because back then they had rules where a twin and a four-cylinder had different displacements, right? And it's like, ooh, give me 33% more displacement. I might be still a little down on power, but I got better drivability,
Yeah.
more compact package, mostly motor drivability. I think that could work. Because I raced the Ducati and I raced the Yamaha. The Ducati power band was just sweet to ride. The Yamaha was harder to ride, less forgiving. The RW was much worse than the Yamaha. But then, but Ducati didn't handle it. So the idea of put a compact bike with a motor in it, like I had done with the R1000. What if it was a modern water-cooled motor with the same kind of tight wheelbase, compactness, and all that stuff? This is before Ducati had any of the stuff they became famous for.
Yeah.
So I think it would have launched before the 960. I think in the times of the 860 Ducati, when it was the first 851,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was back then. That came out racing against the 750s, and then they moved to
Yeah.
the 916. Well, this would have been a 1,000cc bike coming out in 88 or 89.
Wow.
It would have dominated. I mean, it would have dominated. Ducati would have never been anything.
Right.
Ducati
Yeah.
was a tiny company.
At that
Back
point.
then.
Yeah.
When I rode the Ducati, I think they were making 3,000 bikes a year.
Mm-hmm.
My
Yeah.
900 SS. So nothing against Ducati, but I'm just talking about the reality. Yes, with that could have really been something. But they screwed around, motor was late, and then they got sideways with me, decided to do their own frame, ran it for a while, that didn't work, and tested it for a while, they didn't race it. And then they got this guy from England, he talked to design a better beam frame, but it didn't have fuel in the frame. So, but anyhow, that was my first exposures. I was hoping to be involved in that. I was hoping to do the chassis and work with and have a like out in '88. So then after I bought us, we started a project with Porsche. Then started, and we were supposed to have a 1,000cc. I'm sorry, yeah, 1,000cc bike out in '98. 1,000cc twin, along with Porsche. But retired, and he's the guy who launched that project, approved it, got it going. He retired, and guys, well, we should have that engine. And nobody asked for it. You know, bought Buell, and bought Buell after 10 years. He led it, and first guy to contact me was like, we're interested in buying your company. And I had worked for him. He had been the VP of engineering when I worked for him. And I used to go, you know, we really want to have that energy and that innovation in our engineering department. It won't be accepted. You know, I'm like, it's not going to be accepted.
Yeah.
And then called me. In fact, I went in to meet, and he goes, well, here's the deal, Erik. Remember when you told me you didn't think cruisers would make it? Yeah. So what do you think now? I go, okay, you were right. He says, you know why we made it? He says, you remember the Nova we had going? We had all those projects going. He said, that wasn't what our customers wanted. He said, I went out and talked to our customers. I didn't listen to my inside people. I didn't even listen to the dealers. I wanted to get in the, because the dealers are worried about what they're going to sell next week. They got to live. I wanted to know what was in the hearts of my customers. And that led me to buy the prototype from a dealer and turn it into a production line. That was actually happening when I was still working. Because that whole transition of them taking over was right as I left. And he goes, and I shut down the, he said, because my people, what they wanted was nostalgia. They wanted the classic look, but they wanted it to have quality. They didn't want to be broken down. They didn't want to go in the old school dealers where they go fucking fix your own bike. You know? They wanted people to hang out with.
Yeah.
And they had money. And he said, so I just reconstructed the company around that. I got the guys to do it. I've got the quality of the bikes massively up. No more oil leaks, no oil shit, but they're vintage looking. They've got a waiting list now. It's awesome. And some of my guys are like, hey, this is awesome. There's no end to it. Because I went out and talked. I went to Laguna Seca, and I went to the track at Daytona. And I went up to Elkhart Lake, and I talked to all the sport bike guys. They don't want to. I said, so I want to keep a waiting list problem. I don't want to start chasing everybody. I don't want to. I've made this worthless brand into a Rolex. And I need your brand, to allow me to protect this Rolex and not have to grow into it. Because it's going to go up and down with time, with the way it is. But that's okay. As long as I'm not desperately chasing it and the sales go up. So I need other brand to fill that gap and to bring young people in and to sell the sport platforms. And just grow the company in a way. I mean, I believe in this. So then he had a woman named take over, come in and run marketing, and she was not a good old boy at all, clearly, and not from that world. And so she did real research. She came back and said, to do what you want with Buell, he needs a halo bike. Yeah, I was trying to do that. So he needs a full-born sport bike with a water-cooled engine. So we talked about the engineering. They're like, we don't have time for that. So then the discussion was, where do we go? And it went to Porsche because they had worked with one of the, it was, high up in leadership. It worked with Porsche and liked them. So we started that project, and that was going to the project, which was going to be out in '98. And like I said, then he goes, what's ours? And I go, well, it's not, there's nobody asked for it. This is needed by what he wanted to do is, we should have ours. So they took the engine and added 60 pounds to it, made it useless, and it became which sold in very small numbers, never justified the $135 million, which is what the first model cost them to build, and 30-some million for the second. Wow. So we're talking $165 million. But look at the total sales of that fucking thing. Never paid that. That's what. Because nobody asked for it. And sure, they were big enough that they could sell some. But there were a lot of people that didn't like it. And what could they have done with those resources instead? what would it have done for Buell?
A lot.
A lot. It would have done what we wanted,
Yeah.
you know? And it's not that all you're going to sell a super bike to everybody. That would have gone, instead of, well, Buell's a training bike. It's like, fuck, no, Buell's a brand. And was okay with dealers opening separate dealerships that were Buell, and maybe they had a Ducati in there.
Yep.
All that ended when he left. They shut all those down, took away our separate sales force, and put us in with a sales force to sell as a sideline. Big mistake. So many years later, they got in another 10 years later, 8 years, they got in another new head of sales and marketing who was also independent mind. He goes, why the hell doesn't Buell needs a sport bike engine? You know, we got to go. You know, believing the original concept. Like, yay. So we started the project with that became the 1125.
Was that exciting when it got started?
Yeah.
Or nervous?
I'm like, dear God, finally. And then the shit started, but anyhow, then it got corporatized. So, for example, you know, our original concept was a full-fared sport bike. It took that in renderings into the leadership of, and they go, that looks like a Jap bike. We're not going to build that. I mean, they all look and they've had pictures. They had somebody put a presentation of a Ducati, a Yamaha, a Kawasaki, and Suzuki. They all had fairings on it. To me, they all look different because they were there. Look at them. They all look the same. Said, we can't look like that. We got to stay independent. Buell's different in every sense. And I go, yeah, we're American. We're going to be different. I go, well, no, you got to make it look different. I go, all this shit like fat slobs and bad boys and big shits and whatever the fuck you make, they all look the same to me because I'm a sport bike guy. I have no use for that shit. I hate cruisers. They all look the fucking same. Sorry, that's a reality. I'm like, you got to build for my customer. I'm the customer for that. I'm telling you, that's what I want. Nope. So we had to go back and think about what to do with the 1125, which is why the 1125R has those odd pods and stuff, which is still a kind of a cool look, but it didn't, you know, we did our best with it. But that immediately alienated the hardcore sport bike guys who went, well, I don't want a bike that looks like that. I would have liked to have a Buell, but not. Yeah, it's just, yes, you completely forgot about the customer.
Yeah.
You're building it for you.
So you got an 1125.
Oh, yeah, and it couldn't be at 1200 because the time was an 1130.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to be bigger than.
So it had to be smaller. And then
Weird shit. I mean, this happens in corporations a lot.
Yeah.
When their leadership has gone awry. Because leadership should always be about the customer. Always.
Right.
Always.
Customer first.
And when you start doing it on your own ego, man, that's bad for business.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So when you had the opportunity to do a bigger motor, what that led to the 1190?
Yeah, so when it was gone,
What was the thought with that?
well, you know, when I was starting, same old, revisit the same thing again. I want to build an American sport bike company. I need a Halo product.
And how big?
So I need a super biker.
How-
And at the time, the rules were 1200, and we knew that motor could go to the 1200. So there were 10 of us working at Buell, at EBR at that time. And so we said, well, let's build a goddamn super bike, like we always wanted to do. And
How hard was it to turn that engine into a 1190?
Well,
it's a fire breathing monster still. That engine,
yeah, that's still. I mean, the motor was not. You know, the motor was a unique design. It doesn't share parts with other Rotax motors like people online. Go, it's the same motors they really have. No, not doesn't share a part. I don't think. If it does, it'd be a miracle. But it was a totally separate project. And originally, we were going to build them in the U.S. They were going to help co-design it, kind of like Porsche did. And that, when the new leadership was on, they started working on their own project, and they were going to do V4s, and again, the whole thing, they're off on their own, and all these things, and we don't have time for that engine. So we wound up, it was co-designed between Rotax and some engineers who were assigned to Buell and some Buell engineers. All those guys worked together on that engine. And then we went, well, we can't build it here. We want you guys to build it. And they went, well, we don't want to build it because all of our stuff is on assembly line is modular, and our stuff shares parts. And this is it doesn't share any parts with anything. So we got to set up a complete separate assembly line from any of the other ones. So we had to pay for that. It was idiocy because it should have been done in Kansas City,
Yeah.
you know? So that's what happened with that. And so that's where they were, built. So when Buell was shut down and stuff, Rotax goes, we don't want this motor. It doesn't fit anything. It's, everything we do is modular, which it should be, with any company with any brains. And like I said, can I buy it? And I said, I don't have any money, but can I buy it? So they did a deal to buy it over time, for EBR to buy the motor over time. And they said, we're not going to build it. We don't think anything, so you have to build it. So we'll sort of sell you the tooling and the rights and the, you got 3 years to pay it off or whatever the deal is. And so that's what happened. So we started getting the parts here and resourcing a few of the parts, but most of the parts came from the same source as the 1125s had. Some parts were different, but there was not much different on the motor because it was always been built to be a powerful motor that was kind of detuned,
Yeah.
but it's still a very good twin. It's still very competitive. I was loving Jeff's selling his, but Jeff would pop up.
Yeah.
At at Road America or down at Barber and go kick all the KTM's and Ducati's asses on that show.
Yeah.
I love it. Because basically that's the bike was designed by 10 guys. Well, that's not true because the motor was designed by a bigger team originally and the chassis. But we did a lot of work to update it with a small group of guys.
The team that took it to an 1190, was that done after 2010 or was some of that done before?
No, none of it was done. That was all done after.
All done after.
None of that was happening inside.
And a passion to have more horsepower.
Yeah, well, the passion to have, to build what it was supposed to be, to build an American superbike. And then hopefully, we had plans and with EBR that we were going to do. The idea with EBR really was get a halo bike to get some credibility to go racing. It was really built as a race bike. And race with somebody else's money. So I used the Porsche model, which is you go racing at a high level with a lot of sponsorship dollars on the outside. You build underneath that, you build premium road vehicles that aren't that performance level, but carry the cachet. And then you do consulting engineering. And that's what EBR was meant. It was a motorcycle version of Porsche.
Yeah.
In that very early days.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're trying to do with it. So we got in with, the Indian company that was the consulting engineering part of the business. And initially Amsoil sponsored us while racing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the plan of the business, was to make a format like that, which I still think makes sense.
Yeah. You always had a strong focus on performance frames, lightweight, simpler designs,
Yes.
a better performing engine, a chassis that handles better. Tell us a little bit about, what drove that and what your...
Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what. I don't know what. I don't start up growing up riding horses. We always had these rescue horses. We never had any good horses. I don't think they were even called rescue horses. My dad would always come and I'm going to get this old horse, bring him home. They were going to send him off to glue factory. Let's bring him home and go feed him and take care of him. But riding horses and then riding motorcycles or whatever. But for me, the athleticism of a motorcycle is what I love. When I'm riding a motorcycle and the motorcycle basically goes away from underneath you, that's nirvana almost. And that's kind of like, when you're racing at a high level, when you go into that zone, which isn't even, I'll never love that. But it's like, when you see these guys going, I just missed that 101 mile an hour ball and I was watching come in and it curved a little more than I wanted. For you and I would go, you'd hear this noise behind you, the glove. When you race and your mind gets to the level that it was in the Daytona 200 days for me, I remember when it happened, it's like, holy shit, everything's in slow motion. And you are not thinking at all. There is no thought. It's just a flow. The tires are connected to your hands, which are connected to your eyes.
Yeah.
It's just real. And it's addictive. When people go, I go cruise. I'm like, how come you got older? How come you didn't get a car? Go on some, one of those things where they go around and collect cards that are fucking at bars
Poker
when I
run.
get drunk.
Poker run.
It's like, dear God, no. There's absolutely nothing about that appeals to me in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't mean I think those guys are, doesn't, God bless you, man, but that just is not me. You know, I much rather buy a dirt bike. That's why we ever doing dirt bikes with Buell, and that got canceled. And I remember when they canceled that, they were like, well, you're kind of a sport bike company, and then sport bikes doing dirt bikes, it's not the same customers. I'm like, you are a moron, because you don't know the customers. Because every sport bike rider has a dirt bike in his garage.
Yep.
Because it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And when the good dirt bikers get off the dirt bike, they want to go to something cool.
That's what that is. It's like, and God bless him. He's sorry that he tried to save Buell. That guy was in marketing, VP of marketing. He believed in the Buell till the very end. He went down kicking and screaming, trying to support us. He had an ad series that, says sitting is not a sport. So that series of ads. And they had a picture of guys like this. He's got turbulence. And he's like, this is to get people fucking talking, guys. Yeah. He was doing troll stuff back then. It's like when we crushed the blast and turned it into a cube. You fucker, you ruined the blast. The guy says it was to get people to laugh, Yeah. But, that was what that was about. It's like, and then the thing is, when we had another one, is if a Buell rider doesn't wave at you in the corners because he's too busy. When your elbows on your knee or your elbows on the ground, I ain't got time to go do the peace sign, brother. I'm busy. Sorry. Anyhow, hell. So, it's just a different kind of riding, and I love that. One of my favorite bikes, and I was trying to get one, and I missed one the other day. I'm such a fool. I should have bought it. One of my favorite little bikes I had back when my race days was I had what the hell was that? What's the model? 100cc twin Yamaha with a blue and white tank. They brought them in 1 year in the early 70s. Anyhow, it was a 100cc twin two-stroke, and I had Clubman bars on mine and Coney shocks, and it had probably 14 horsepower.
Wow.
And you would just ride it flat out down these twisty roads, and you'd go by some lady's house on a rocking chair. You'd be like,
yeah.
And she'd be looking at you waving because you weren't going blah, 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 But it was sport because, it's like I can't let off the throttle because if I do, it'll take me forever to get the speed back. And, it's just, that's a fun for me. It's not, it's being you and the bike one. It's not about speed and power. Obviously you need that with a Halo bike to get on the road and get the brand name. And they're cool with that. But to me, what I was always shooting for was that. Compact. So the middleweight we were going to launch with EBR that got technical EBR 100 was going to be a crazy light 700 to 850s parallel twin. Crazy light, really cool design. We had a whole bunch of innovative designs on that. Because to me, that wasn't about horsepower. It's like, it's a cool bike. I can make a on-off-road bike with it. I can make a street fighter out of it. I can make a sport bike out of it. Parallel twin's a pretty cool design, for that.
Yeah.
And cheap to make.
Yeah.
Right. When you have a V-twin, you're buying two of too many things.
Yeah.
And the one part makes things easier.
Right.
The two.
Yeah.
Why do I have two camshaft drives?
Right.
I could have one. So, I was always on that goal, and it's gone. I'll never go there now. So, had a lot of good ideas, had a lot of innovations that we wanted to do. And, I guess that with the motocross, and after all those years of disappointments with stuff, and even fiddling in the electric world and having that not financed, not being able to come through. And I just was doing engineering consulting because, again, I believed in it. And the idea was try to make American. By then, I don't want to be involved in business. And all I want to do is help engineering, because I'm pretty good at leading a lean engineering team. But, it's just hard to do. But it's needed. And in this country, we need investors to invest in manufacturing, because this whole idea of, we'll be a service industry company. Guess what the word serve turns into? It turns into servants.
Yeah.
And the elitists would love if we were all servants. They'd be fine.
Yeah.
We needed the middle class. You know, the way you could march up through, you know, if you were born in a rough community in Detroit, you used to be able to go to work at Ford and the Ford
Yep.
plant and get paid a damn good wage as a union guy. And maybe you send your kids off to school, and guess what? They shuttle those planes down and they build them in Mexico and they build them in China. Nothing against those people, but we forgot our people and created them for these.
Right.
And it wasn't to make their lives better. It was so the wealthier could get wealthy. So I'm not going to get on a political rant, but it breaks my heart, man, that this is happening.
Yeah.
Because our country was wonderful. The fact that we're so diverse, you know, we get beaten up for not being diverse, but there is no country in the world as diverse. Oh, you know, races, religions, whatever, that were all one blend. And that's what made us great, because we had all these ideas coming together from different areas, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, if you're in Germany, everybody does something. So German way is this way. You know, in Japan, the Japanese way. Then here is, I don't know, what's today's way? What do you think? You know?
Yeah.
And again, all these
melting
opinions
pot of all the ideas.
And then a lot of people who worked hands-on became good engineers because,
Yeah.
you know, they had that experience. So that ability to go through and rise. Oh, man, we need it so bad here.
There's a big push to bring it back right now.
Lord, we need
It's
it.
finally pushing.
You know, it will, you know, and the thing they forget about is that, you know, and they're definitely, and why this never gets mentioned, you know, every man, and I've talked to people who are wealthy people who go, well, that manufacturer just, forget it. It's just stupid. Every automotive or motor vehicle manufacturing job that's created, there's like 20 jobs created underneath it. It's the most multiplying jobs that exist in the world.
Yeah.
You know, because I've got a supplier, and I got a trucker, and I've got the woman that works at the restaurant where they go to eat, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's been done numbers I can't remember, but I believe
the
it's in the
testing and the
20s.
parts and the machinery and the
The
equipment.
machine shop and the casting house, and it's like, guys,
yeah.
when you give away a manufacturing job, you just gave away 20 jobs.
Right. Yeah.
Who is not? Why is somebody not stopping this? I'm sorry.
Yeah. The OEM multiplier.
Yeah.
OEM. Yeah.
Anyhow, I'll never be there, so I write songs. And Tish wonders, why do I write sad songs? It's like, well, my life's wonderful with you, but I've seen sad things in my time.